Welcome to the 21st Century Human podcast, where we discuss the technology and techniques of the skills that shape us in the 21st century. I'm Lewis Richards. I'm joined again by my colleague Bob Barker.
Hello, good morning.
And we're joined today by Leon. So, Leon, do you want to introduce yourself and say what you do and who you are?
I will. Hi. So I'm Leon Benjamin. I'm a collaboration practitioner, and my story is quite simple. Actually, 25 years ago, I started in the world. I'm actually a closet computer scientist. And I started my career designing computer networks, deeply complex connectivity problems between different computers all over the world. And fast forward 25 years, I now find myself designing people networks. And interestingly, there's a very strong overlap between those two disciplines. So I've used a lot of the learnings that I've had from designing computer networks to designing people networks. And without going into my full history, my background is program and project management. So I up until quite recently, spent the last 20 years managing really big programs of IT change, from e-commerce systems to large infrastructure upgrades and dealing room technologies around the world.
But what you focus on now as a company is collaboration, isn't it?
Indeed.
And in putting in collaboration systems and helping people with that change. And that's what we're going to try and bring out here today. Some of the challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we our 21st Century Human interview, we base it around our model, our wheel, and our wheel has got 7 sections to it.
Okay.
The 7 sections are sensing, personal brand, digital fabric or tools, high productivity, collaboration, leadership, and then wellness in the middle, because it's about the 21st century human. So we thought we'd go around that wheel and just get your sense on some of those aspects.
Do news.
We do. Well, let's do the model first.
Do the model first.
Yeah, because I'll have for a bit. So when we mean sensing, we talk about how to use the 21st century human, keep your kind of finger on the pulse, especially in the collaboration space. How do you ensure there's such a hose pipe of info out there? How do you stay on top of developments, product releases, change, all that kind of stuff? Have you got any tips or tricks or anything? How do you make sense of the world?
I have. So I think it was Clay Shirky who said that we're not suffering from information overload. What we're suffering from is filter failure.
Yeah.
So my means, if you like, of keeping my finger on the pulse is through people. I use people as filters. Now, obviously, those people can be related to a stream on Twitter.
Yeah.
It could be people I'm following or companies that I'm following on LinkedIn. But basically, fundamentally, I'm still using people to filter the information that I need to get to. And I still use some technologies like RSS feeds. I still use Google News Alerts, very highly specific tags around that. Still very useful. But fundamentally, I'm basically using people to bring me the information that I need.
We're big believers in that kind of human skill of filtration and curation, and the different aspects of that. I think that's a real key skill. That to actually something you can learn and practice at as well. I think. Do you find that as well from being aware of kind of the bias and an echo chamber sometimes that you get from who you follow? So making sure that do you tweak that people network in terms of bringing people in and out of it?
Absolutely. Diversity is key, and even myself, I would imagine that there'll be people out there that are following me, thinking it's a little bit same old. I need to branch out a little bit, and I do the same thing. There are certain individuals that I have such sort of deep respect for, in terms of the way that they monitor and operate in their respective areas of expertise or in the markets that they specialize in. But to your point, yes, I'm always looking for new avenues or new channels to get information, but always trying to filter it so that I don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah. So do you use lists on Twitter? Is that how you filter, or you just?
Occasionally I use lists.
Yeah. Or do you tend to look at the streams?
I tend to inspect streams on an ad hoc basis.
Right.
Obviously, having been involved in social media, both on a consumer side, but also on the enterprise side, I've just got good at using the tools and identifying the key people that I really want to follow.
Yeah, I think we class that as kind of confidence and competence, really. Isn't it?
Yes.
Because you're not not scared of the tools almost. Like you've got to use it as. I saw a post this week actually about using those systems as an instrument, not a tool, which I thought was a really nice way of putting it. Really, you've got to be like a pianist on it, kind of thing. So not just playing chopsticks on it.
And the other thing is, let's not disregard email. I subscribe to various newsletters, particularly the ones that give you links to other places rather than a whole bunch of text.
Yeah.
So.
I must admit, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss's 5 Bullet Friday one he puts out as well. So there's always a really concise one. That's a good one. Yeah.
For him, concise.
Yeah, he's a really good one. He puts one out. Yeah, and Benedict Evans as well. One of the
Benedict Evans, very good
from Andreessen Horowitz. He puts out a weekly newsletter, which is really good as well. Yeah, I like Ben Evans as well. He's really good. I mean, he's prolific on Twitter.
When you're filtering, do you set a particular in your routine? Do you have a sort of? Do you do that once a day at beginning of the day or at lunch? Or is it random? Do you have a sort of set routine where you filter?
I'm not very disciplined, so I'm very seduced by new ideas. So if I see something
nice and shiny,
unless I'm in the middle of writing a proposal or I'm in project delivery, but if I'm not very disciplined in that respect, I tend to quite randomly follow things that interest me. Often because they're quite relevant to something I'm doing right now.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, it's not a bad learning practice.
Okay. Yeah. Personal brand then, in terms of how you market yourself or put yourself out there online. Do you pay that much attention, or have you? I suppose in the past you have. You've written books and things like that. So how?
So it's a combination of things, really. Public speaking. It's interesting. I never look for public speaking. It generally comes to me. So there'll be some years where I get a lot of offers for speaking engagements, and other years very, very few. But I do find those to be a really strong platform to amplify my personal brand and my personality. I still write a bit. I mean. Less so now on my personal blog, and in fact, I'm rather embarrassed. My personal blog, if you look at it, it's a bit in a state of disrepair. It got corrupted and hacked a few months ago, and I haven't repaired it. But blogging's been a very effective way for me to build out and amplify my personal brand.
What platform are you using?
I have. For many years, used the same platform, Typepad. I still pay for it. Although, again, one of my pet projects is actually move it to WordPress because Typepad's a little bit old and weary.
And are you thinking of writing another book? Have you written a book about collaboration?
Leon's
book was Leon's famous book was Winning by Sharing, which came out in 2003, which was the first book that really talked about. When the internet was out and social media, you need to share.
Yes.
And by sharing, you'll win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I've got designs on writing. I'd quite like to write a new version of that same book.
Collaborating.
Yes, maybe.
Winning by collaboration or something.
Well, one title I'm a big fan of. Maybe we'll get to talk about this in a minute. Is have beliefs, not teams. What I've discovered, particularly in the last sort of 6 or 7 years in my day job, is that there's this almost fanaticism about groups and teams and tribes and how you get them to work better. And fundamentally, what we found is that it's much more effective to give people to have shared beliefs. And then, interestingly,
coalesce.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good concept. It's a different way of thinking around it, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
And then I suppose also personal branding. I do things like this, these sort of interviews. I did one recently with CNBC on agile working.
Keep your hand in.
Yeah.
Okay, so next part of our wheel, the next two sections, those two are kind of like sensing and personal branding linked together, really. And then the next two we kind of link together as well, which is kind of like tools that be kind of like your digital fabric of the ecosystem you use, and making sure that, or just teasing the ideas of how much you sweat the assets you already have,
right?
From a software and hardware point of view. So the first one in that is basically that digital fabric. So what's your main ecosystem do you use? Are you from a hardware point of view? Are you a Mac guy? Are you an Android guy? Are you iOS? What tools do you use?
I'm gonna say all of the above.
Yeah.
Partly because my day job involves being an expert in pretty much all of them.
That's good. Yeah.
But internally in my own company, we use two core applications for the storage of information, retrieval of information. One is we use Slack for instant messaging and the movement of transient information. We're really big fans of Jive. I know it's a big, clunky old application, but we're very into what we call the sort of preservation of institutional memory.
I thought Jive was a great tool set.
It is still today by far the best all-rounder.
Yeah.
If you wanted an all-round app that served everyone's needs, it would be Jive. And we kind of run our business on it, and it's still the most effective tool for getting lots of people collaborating around a single idea or a single set of objects, whether it's a video or a document or a proposal.
Yeah.
And then finally, obviously for real time, we are really, really big fans of Cisco meeting technology. So we're big WebEx users, although we use Skype. But again, internally and mostly with our customers, we're using WebEx. Everyone in our company has a dedicated video unit because we have an office, but everyone works from home.
Yeah.
So video gives us that kind of intimacy.
So you video first then?
Always video first.
It's funny culturally when you do that, obviously, because we do a lot we predominantly use Teams now, and we move from Skype for Business. But so basically, when you talk to people sometimes and they come onto a Teams meeting, and by default they all turn their video off. Whereas like when we work with like colleagues or clients we work with, like GE for instance, their default is video first. So it instantly face to face. Whereas other cultures, other companies, it's always audio. You have to ask people, or you turn your video on first before they'll actually do it as well.
Do you know that it's extraordinarily hard to get a video first culture? Your example of GE is the first I've heard of it. There are others, but again, because it's our day job, we're always putting adoption around video-based systems, and it's interesting because we obviously ask people why they don't do this.
Yeah.
And women in particular do have this thing about, well, I haven't put my face on, I'm not ready for this call. Men provide all kinds of excuses, like I'm not in the right environment, or but everyone's got a particular bugbear about switching video on.
Oculus released the Oculus Go, which is like a standalone VR headset last week. It's kind of like the iPhone moment, really. It's like it's rather than putting your phone into a mobile headset, it's an actual all-in-one, which we were a bit kind of, it's not upgradable, it's not going to work, but it's actually a really robust product for £200. So we've been experimenting with our research team by just having this kind of thing on your desk, and then jumping into an hour-long research meeting, just you put the headset on, put a pair of headphones on, and appearing in like a virtual apartment. But that's an interesting one because you have an avatar. So it's going back to the kind of like almost like a Second Life days and this kind of stuff, but in a 3D version, not a 2D. Whereas some of those things, it's still you feel like it's face to face, and it's animated, and you use your hands and you can talk, but it's not the same as video. It's a jump between video to avatar-based communication, which is interesting.
And maybe that's the intermediate step people need to take, as they have a proxy profile instead of their real person. I think you must remember the days when Don Tapscott was talking a lot down at Academy, and I think I'll never forget the quote that he said, and I think it relates a lot to video, which is, if you're going to be naked, you better be buff.
Yeah.
And I think, I think a lot of people, particularly in the corporate world, feel they are not buff enough to be naked on video.
Yeah.
So we should have that as part of our lifestyle.
Well, you just look like
making sure you look good online.
Well, at least from the waist up, anyway. Most times I've done conference calls with a shirt and tie on and combat shorts and flip flops below the waist. You
haven't got combat shorts on.
No, not today. No. But it's funny though, because you look at the way all the platforms are going. They're all going to multi-person, multi-group video. I mean, iOS 12 this week. Yes. FaceTime now supports 32 people in a FaceTime call. I mean, the big funny joke, guys, I'm not sure I know 32 people I'd want to have a FaceTime call with.
Indeed.
But there's that kind of multi-person. They all support large-scale multi-person. And I thought they were interesting ones. They've launched, typical Apple. It's called Memoji. So they've got the Animoji, which uses the face tracking on the iPhone X to animate up emojis, but now you can customize. You can create you as almost a cartoon version of you. It's still that extrapolation of a digital you or a digital twin or something that's not really your face, but it's you talking, looks like you. It's that kind of.
I think that would, for me, because I'm probably so egotistical. For me, that dilutes my personality rather than enhances it. But each to his own.
Cool.
That's very interesting stuff.
Let's move on. So, amplifying productivity then is our next kind of physical one. So, we live in a kind of a really hyper-connected environment, where everything's pluggable to everything else. Everything's got an API, this kind of stuff as well. Do you do any kind of automation or any kind of personal productivity hacks that you use to kind of remove some of the mundanity of what you're doing?
I don't do a lot of it. I mean, there are loads of apps out there that can automate some of the more kind of regular things that you would do. But when I've tried to use them, I found that they need so much personalization that you're kind of better off. You're spending as much time personalizing it to get it right, to get it human, as you are kind of doing it yourself. So
that usage of like narrow AI almost. We're starting to see emergence of X.AI that does calendar scheduling, or there's some that based in. I know Teams have got and Slack have some bots that you can put into Slack to do things for you, kind of stuff as well.
The bot that I'm really looking out for, and I know that one or two of the vendors have got them, but not at the personal productivity level. Because I really would like a bot that just said, I want to meet with Tony, John and Sarah tomorrow between these times, and for it to go away, check everyone's diaries, create the invite and send it out. That for me would be amazing.
You should have a look at X.AI then, because that's what their AI does from an email basis, but they've literally just written a Slack interface.
Really?
For it, which you might want to go and test. Because I think it's basically having like an electronic PA. I mean, we use it as a test thing, actually, because half the time you send it to humans and you copy your PA in, either a guy or a girl, and most of the time humans respond to it and don't realise they're dealing with Amy or Alex.
Right.
I think the Slack integration bot thing's a really interesting bit, because that's the next stage of that. It's not via the prescriptive email, it's via a Slack channel. Amy, get over to Lewis and Bob and set this up.
Cisco have done it. I mean, they announced it recently in Arizona back in April, where you can literally you can be on a WebEx Teams call now, and there are a bunch of people in a group or a team, and it's voice activated. You can talk to, I can't remember what the name of the personality is, but you can talk to it. Just say book a meeting, goes off, comes back.
So like language processing really, stuff.
That for me at a personal productivity level would be the number one amplification tool.
It's a funny one really, because I think the tooling's getting better and the capabilities actually there. I'm sometimes finding that the problem with it is not the tech or the technology. It's us. It's our ability to change our habits, to try something new. Because that kind of muscle memory of you've got 20 years of doing it that way, even though the tooling exists. Part of the problem is you do it and then you think, oh Christ, I could use the AI to do that.
Yeah. So we have an analogy in Seimani where we substitute the word drug for technology and the word user for personal user. And we always say it's not the drug, it's the user. So you can put any kind of technology in front of somebody if they're not ready, or if they've got various fears against using it. So that's why we focus in our daily work on the person rather than the technology.
And in terms of productivity and collaboration, in terms of putting these systems, have you got any, in terms of it making people more efficient in the office or getting things done, is there some sort of research results that you found there? So if people adopt this collaborative technology, it must make the organisation more efficient in some way, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here's the interesting thing. Collaboration doesn't change your culture, it reveals it. And quite often when you see that revelation, it's you don't like what you see. I'm talking now on an organisational level. And I think I said earlier, the it's not just us in my company, but we've seen it in some of our customers, is that actually, perversely, the best way to get higher productivity is to change the rules and not the technology. So for example, actually get senior leaders to give people permission to use some of these technologies. Tell them that you don't care if they look vulnerable. Tell them that you want them to seek help. There was an amazing, after the tragedy of 9/11, there was apparently a silent invasion from Harvard University into the intelligence community to try and understand why there was such a chronic failure of intelligence around this event. And they spent actually a couple of years analysing all of the, whatever they are, 12, 13, three-letter alphabet agencies, and they found that the highest performing teams were the ones that had leadership that gave people permission to seek help outside their own unit. So it's these kinds of things that enhance productivity, not fundamentally, not really the tools.
Do you find it's a funny one actually? I mean, I think I completely agree in terms of the permission thing from the leadership down. I think part of the change management problem I've seen then though is actually the willingness of the masses to realise that permission's been given. I mean, I still see that a lot of ways. You have some leaders who say, no, we've given you the tools, go do what you want. We will support you, we'll open you, this kind of stuff. And then you still have that, if you look in the threads and the conversations, you still have that people who will hanker after the comfort blanket of being told, use that tool, or the comfort blanket, use this tool. And sometimes the freedom and the permission to do stuff it's almost like unacceptable to people as well. I mean, that's part of the challenge, I think, of getting this stuff to land. Is how you've got to bring people with you almost, and kind of, massage them and help them along the process to show that the world's not going to burn down if you try something new.
And let's be honest again. It's we look at all of this through the lens of addiction. Right? I mean, changing people's habits, the way they work, is actually quite hard. In the same way if you were an alcoholic, you don't get cured when you go to your first AA meeting. Right? So you need multiple. Just simply come up, just a senior leader saying I'm giving you permission on its own probably isn't enough. It needs a lot of repetition. The other thing is that don't forget there are a lot of unproductive people in large organisations, and email's the perfect tool to hide behind. Right? Yeah. One CFO I know calls it stupid busy. Which I think is a great. And I remember a few years ago, I can't mention any names, I remember saying to one chief people officer I know quite well, I said to her, you realise what's going to happen if we get most of the company using this enterprise-wide social collaboration platform? And she said no. I said, well, you'll finally find out who's actually doing all the work, right?
That's a really good one as well, because I mean, if you spend in one location for enough time, like parent company for 20 years, right? And you've gone through 5 different, every 3 years, a new collaboration platform, because this one doesn't work, we can't find anything, it's not good, and we're going to put a new one in, and then 3 years later, that's too messy, it doesn't work, we're going to move this one in. It's the same 10, 15 people who rock up as early adopters and, really drive them all the time across the different platforms, isn't it?
And actually, funny enough, we found that can be off-putting. So the BBC a few years ago launched Yammer very early on, actually about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was jumped on by all the geeks. The geeks had a geek fest. And the moment that the rest of the business wanted to come on, they were just put off by it. But actually, again, I know in the BBC they had a culture problem. People were saying, what happens if I go onto that platform with a great idea and someone else steals it in my own company? Right. So these are what we call very, very much sort of hidden barriers to adoption.
I think. I mean, we're using Teams at the moment for Office 365, and it's why I think I like Teams versus Slack, because I think Slack sometimes can be, you can use Slack in different ways, but Slack to me has always been quite, there's lots of backslash commands that can be quite technical. Teams has stripped a lot of that away. It's almost they've taken the Slack experience and aimed at it normal humans first, almost, and then now they're bringing in more complexity. They didn't start off with it, if you know what I mean. It's quite an interesting way they've built the tool.
Yeah, the reason why we think Teams is really, really strong, because it's not perfect and it's got a few more revisions to go, and again in large enterprises, the reality, you'll remember this from the old world, is how we talked about social objects. Could be a video, could be a document. But in large enterprises, the social object is actually a document, and that's why Teams is so strong, because they've fully integrated documents around human beings that are typically spending most of their time producing, or amending.
It's making SharePoint finally usable, isn't it? And all that kind
but
of
it's like
stuff.
I like your alcoholics and your AA analogy as well, though, because I think one of the things we're interested in is that kind of you can help people, but it's you've got to constantly nudge people to become a habit. So I think the AA thing, what I like about that is that model is that there's always a sponsor. I don't think the thing I've read about it online is that you've never really cured of that addiction.
Yes.
You fight every day with support every single day to get your badges and your tokens, your 10 years sobriety thing. And I think, to me, that's a really good analogy of using these tools. You need a sponsor, you need a mentor, and someone's got to nudge you every day almost to try and change your habits.
I totally agree with you, and we harp on about this a lot, which is, there's a reason why there's $1 trillion advertising industry is because it works, right? And one of the reasons why it works is through repetition, right? But we don't do enough of it, I think, in the enterprise. There's obviously a balance there, but totally agree.
So we're moving on to collaboration.
No, we're doing collaboration.
We've been talking about it all the time.
So leadership then, go on.
Okay. Well, leading by example, and I think you have talked about that in terms of how in organisations giving staff permission to use all these tools, and also being on them themselves. And what's your experience of senior leaders embracing the tools and that being a factor in adoption? Is that hard?
So it is crucial, if I'm honest with you, totally crucial, because in large enterprises, employees look up to leaders, right? And they also imitate leadership styles. So if leaders aren't walking the walk with some of these technologies, they can't expect their employees to do it. But it isn't the whole story. My views around leadership, and I haven't led a multinational company, but I've done a lot of leadership work myself in my own career, and I fundamentally think that leaders get their power from the bottom, managers get their power from the top. And I think to be a really good leader, you have to be able to have influence without authority. We saw this a lot, and again, I'm harping back because we learned a lot from my days in academy. We used to get a lot of people in academy that were really ex-senior people, right, with the whole coterie of business expenses and business cards and PAs. Suddenly they were made redundant, had to come into the big wide world, and they were really uncomfortable, right? And actually, I'm almost sure a lot of them didn't survive it. And part of that is they didn't develop their own degree of influence without having a big stick saying I'm the head of right. So the other thing I'm learning a lot, and I'm again really very early on this journey, is virtual leadership, right? Which is obviously more and more necessary today. Is that some aspects of virtual leadership are actually more effective than FaceTime. And there's a lady, can't quite remember her name, who's written a book on virtual leadership. She did a lot of research with the management schools here in the UK. I think she's French. That has got some really compelling evidence to suggest that virtual leadership, and of course with virtual leadership you can be in many different places at the same time. One of the things that we found again in our work is that a lot of senior leaders don't like that idea because of the loss of status around all the travel goodies that they get by being on a plane all the time. And again, as I say, a lot of these collaboration adoption issues are psychological, or they are they're certainly not related to the technology.
Sure. And what about, just talk about coaching, because when you put in these systems, you do a lot of, you do a lot of coaching for individuals, don't you? I think when we met a few years ago, you said I was surprised by how much coaching you had to do, and how it
Indeed.
took 3 or 4 years to roll out something in a large.
Sometimes it does, yeah. Absolutely. So they say that when you think about teams and groups, it's not my expression. I'm quite sure where it came from, but we believe in it, which is that people come for content, but they stay for community.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to build out, whether it's in your personal life or in your company work life, if you want to create sustainable groups of people that get stuff done, you have to learn how to be a community manager, and it's a thing you have to learn how to do.
One thing
it
Jive
doesn't come naturally.
I think Jive have done a really good job of making that their mantra for their corporation, and their community manager is a massive part of their business model.
Absolutely, and I think
don't just sell you the software.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it was the management guru Peter Drucker said not long before he died, about 10-12 years ago, he said that community building talent is the most precious resource in the modern world. And he was truly referring to this idea of individuals being able to, without necessarily permission, create these communities of practice that deliver such incredible value, whether it's at a personal level or a professional level.
I think that's a really interesting, because you see lots of they jump on the next pack, so everybody's doing agile, but they're almost kind of like just taking that thing and say, well, there's 20 people that you might be, but you're going to be agile now, and they're just going to be a scrum master and do this kind of stuff. But, it's like applying this it's like a hammer to a problem. Whereas all the good things about, or the ability that agile's not always right. Sometimes you want to be lean, sometimes you want to be agile, sometimes you want to be smart. There's a whole plethora of ways in which people work. But it's almost like you want to take that and just apply it to everybody, without thinking about the people community a bit first.
Just to your point around agile, I totally agree with that. I mean, there are circumstances in which you actually want to do waterfall. You actually want to sit down, specify something, write out in incredible detail, and give it to a developer. Believe me, there are, because I've run agile projects where we've stopped doing agile just for a very short period of time to get absolute clarity on why this tiny bit of the software needs to be highly specified and not just talked about in a conversational way. I even think, I know this isn't a program about politics, but I even think that next generation political parties should be calling themselves flexible parties, because there are extraneous macro events that are taking place which warrant policy that's left of the spectrum sometimes, and the world turns, it changes, and then you need a policy that's right of the spectrum. But obviously no political leader is ever going to go onto the...
Funny, I saw a big guy who was one of the original unicorn billionaire startup guys for mobile. He's formed like a transhumanist party, and he's very much in that kind of a thing.
Right.
Like, politics needs to shape itself or reshape itself around the people, and rather than it being these groups first with these ideologies. It's not flexible enough to the modern world almost. Right,
bringing it back to
final part.
So lifestyle.
Right.
So lifestyle and well-being. What do you do? Track things? You keep fit? Have you got a routine? That kind of thing.
I am shockingly bad at. I'm shockingly bad.
On the wheel.
It's funny actually, because over the years, people. I used to have a very sporty background. Play a lot of sport. Years and years ago, I actually ended up playing schoolboy rugby for England. I played at county level. I was pretty active up until my sort of early 30s. And some people have said to me, "What's your sport?" And even now, I don't play enough of it. But my sport for the last 20 years has been snooker, right? Which isn't the most active thing in the world. I'm a smoker, so. I used to play snooker in the smoky snooker halls. Obviously, that's all stopped. But I'd be honest with you, so I go to the gym now. I'm basically into doing a bit of a swim, and I love steam baths because I find it quite purifying. But if I'm honest with you, the thing that keeps me well is my mind. So I spend a lot of time. I'm a voracious reader of stuff across the spectrum, professional stuff. I'm very interested in. I'm very interested in things that are going on outside the visible spectrum of what's being talked about. I suppose in the mainstream media. I tend to look outside of that. I think there are some very interesting things going on. I love science fiction. When I go on holiday, I'm really into sci-fi. So it's I focus. Right. I'm really into it. So I in a perverse way, I think it's my mental health. That kind of supports my.
Do you do any, obviously, the thing that's de-rig at the moment is kind of this millions of dollars of investment with things like mindfulness, and then do you do any kind of subscribe to any of those things? Any kind of meditation or anything like that? You do any kind of guided stuff or relaxation? Yeah, I mean, I here's the other thing is to your point around wellness is that I have a lot of moments throughout my day, or I have moments in a particular week or month where I just want to do nothing. I just want to think, or I don't want to do any thinking at all. And I personally find that quite healing. The mindfulness thing, I get that. I think like all things, it goes a little bit over the top. I mean, I'm hearing now about getting productivity in the workplace, where there are some companies now that want to monitor the kind of food people are eating, right, at particular times of the day, right? And they're going, no, seriously, they are. Yeah. They're looking at oxygen levels and in the office and all this kind of stuff to get squeeze more productivity out of people. And I think that's going too far. It's probably one of the companies we work with in the New York offices have got sleep pods, nap pods, so people can go and have a sleep in. I think predominantly they're always empty because no one's brave enough to go and have a sleep in case the boss walks past. Well, so that's a culture. Looks good, right? That's a culture thing. I mean, I remember in the startup days they had this whole, have a masser come to your desk and stuff. And I just thought it was a little bit, just a bit of a fad, really. Yeah. I think it's interesting. We're interested in the quantified self aspects of, the data that you generate on your own person, and the monetization value of that, or the health benefits of that from that kind of stuff, really. And it's a funny one because it's all coalesces around this generally. Yes. As a recording, streaming device. Really. Yes. It's interesting just to see kind of where people are in terms of being able to use or access that data, that kind of stuff. Really. I mean, I suppose. We've talked about this a lot over the years. Reputation management. It takes many years to build it and 10 seconds to destroy it. And I wonder whether this whole social credit thing that's we're seeing emerging in China and stuff like that. In China might actually come to the West. Some of it's scary. Do you know the funny thing is, people point at those stories about the social credit thing in China, going, it's Big Brother, it's Orwellian. I think it's here in the West as well. It's just broken up into different fashions. That's government sponsored, working with their companies to track and that kind of stuff. It's the same over here. We're in the most surveilled country in the world in terms of CCTV and facial recognition, and we're tracked by Facebook, by Twitter, by LinkedIn. All of these things. I think it's the same here. I just think we're probably less aware of it because it's fractured, and it's maybe not as apparent to us, really. I agree. Okay, cool. That's great. So that was our wheel. Okay. So, can we move on to our quick fire round now? Okay. So these you can pick either or give us an alternative. It's a bit of fun. Okay. So, Apple or Android? Android. Okay. Star Wars or Star Trek? Oh, definitely a Trekkie. To me, that's the mark of the true geek. That is. People who say Star Wars are very much more of your fantasy. I think Star Trek. It's fine with me. Yeah, I like the. This is your captain speaking. Cool. LinkedIn or Twitter? LinkedIn. Okay. LinkedIn, Twitter. Office 365 or Google Apps? Oh, 365. Yeah, okay. WhatsApp or Slack? Slack as a channel. Dropbox or SharePoint? Dropbox, okay. Virtual reality or augmented reality? Virtual reality. Okay, cool. Fitbit or Apple Watch for me? Or neither, or either? Neither. I don't do fitness. Okay, that kind of stuff. Podcasts or YouTube? So audio or visual? I'm an audio person. If I'm podcast. Yeah. Cool. Okay. iTunes or Spotify? Spotify. Okay. I don't think I've done anybody who's on iTunes.
Spotify is fabulous.
Yeah, I like
it's
Spotify.
magical.
Yeah, it's a good system,
Yeah.
isn't it? Black cabs or Uber?
I'm a black cab guy,
Black cab
although
guy.
I do use Uber, but I
Do you
again
use-
like
do you
the
use-
social
Yeah.
aspects of
Do you-
talking to a cab driver.
Yeah.
So when you use the black cabs, do you use the apps to get the black cabs? or you
No,
still
I
have
hail
Instagram?
them. I only
Yeah.
use Uber for long trips.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then Amazon or eBay?
Amazon.
Amazon. Okay, that's an interesting one as well.
Mm.
So, our last part of our interview is desert island apps, right? So this is our riff on desert island discs. So you are basically on a desert island. We'll give you your mobile phone. You have ubiquitous Wi-Fi and Google Maps. But then it's what are the top,
And email.
and email. You can have that for comments. So what are the top 3 apps you'd have on your mobile phone that you couldn't live without to keep yourself entertained, to survive on a desert island?
I can think of 2. The third, number 1 would be a browser.
Okay.
I need Google.
Yeah.
I need Google Chrome. Interestingly, the second one would be Shazam,
Okay.
because I know it's a desert island, but certainly on the front page of my mobile phone today, the three apps that you'll really see are Chrome, Shazam, and email.
Okay.
Those are my 3.
That'd be good. So
three
you could
biggies,
find
yeah.
and discover new music to keep yourself entertained.
Yeah,
and find
That's
what it
what
is.
just
Because
Shazam does.
Yeah.
Because my reading comes through quite a lot. Comes through email.
Yeah.
And then I need a browser because that's more reading, and music is a big deal for me.
That covers
In fact,
it
the third one I was over than Shazam would be Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't live without music.
It's funny on the Spotify thing because I use Spotify religiously all the time, but I spend more of my time listening to stand-up comedy than I do listening to music. I find it's a brilliant channel for that. I've got this weird thing about going to sleep listening to someone talking, so I now listen to stand-up comedy going to bed all the time.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was surprised that there's not more spoken word stuff on there actually as a channel rather than just music.
Well, iTunes was quite strong with that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With podcasts and me a
Yeah.
few years ago. But yeah, I get that. But I'm a
Spotify day.
Spotify guy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So finally, what in this whole area, digital skills, collaborative skills, what keeps you interested? What gives you the passion for doing it? What do you find fascinating? Why are you in this space?
It's a good question. I mean, this might sound a bit cheesy, but again, in because of my background and spending so much time working in very large companies and seeing so many people unhappy about
Being there, or
just let's face it. First of all, there might be a lot of people that are miserable going to work, but everyone will admit they'd be a lot more miserable if they didn't have a job or weren't going to work.
Right.
A lot more, right? But in my world or in my history, especially everything we do today, is really just about making work a little bit better for people, a little bit easier, a little bit faster, a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
Right? And not so serious. And it sounds, the thing that gets me up out of bed, and again because of the work we do every day, is just literally helping people work better, work easier, work more efficiently, if you like. Yeah.
And that's
very 21st
music to our ears. I mean, it's the mantra that gets us out of bed in the morning as well.
Yeah.
So how do you make people better, really?
Yeah.
We look at it kind of like trying to get people to look at almost like the wonder in the everyday.
Yeah.
So it's got to be fun. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be, remove the drudgery. It's an admirable concept, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Cool.
So Leon, thank you very much. That was very good.
Yeah.
Very welcome.
That's another episode of the 21st Century Human Podcast. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Cheers.